Guys, Aldershot here, and today we're going to do an early impression video on Lichdom Battlemage. Now, normally we'd like to throw in our early access games in with our impression videos. However, this game kind of made me rethink my format a little bit and kind of branch off. So I'm doing an early impression series now, which is basically our impression series except on early access games. Alright, just so you guys can clearly understand that this is an early access game, and so you can adjust your expectations accordingly. Now, Lichdom Battlemage is a action-adventure first-person RPG game. Alright, released on Steam for $20. And we're going to jump into a game, just so you guys can see some of the mechanics and such. So we're going to start a game. Now, this being an early access game is definitely going to have a few rough edges. It's not quite optimized yet, so the load-in to the initial game is going to take a little while. Alright, it does have a bit of a long loading. I don't think I'm the only one either. I believe it's been mentioned on the forums before, so do keep that in mind. Hopefully they will work on that and will be improved as the game progresses. So, this being an action-adventure RPG, let's kind of talk about the mechanics a little bit. Alright, so you got your run, of course, and then you can also shoot your fireballs, and you can also have a kind of like a magic barrier as well. And if you combine both those moves, LB and RB, you can combine it into sort of an AoE kind of magic attack, which is kind of interesting. You also have this interesting sort of time freezing dash as well, where you press space and you kind of dash in the direction that you're holding currently, and that will provide you some space between you and the mobs. It's going to be quite useful. Something interesting about the game is that it doesn't really have a mana bar or a health bar or even a stamina bar, so you can technically run, dodge, and cast spells to your heart's content. Alright, as much as you like. Now, you do have fire and ice elements as well, and they'll obviously do different effects and do different amounts of damage. But as I was saying, there's no actual limit on how much you can cast your spells or how often you can do your dodge. Now, you might say that that might be a little bit overpowered. However, this game being more on the action, kind of almost Twitch side of the action RPG genre, it's more about the moment-to-moment combat. It's not about number crunching and min-maxing or anything like that, at least not in this current build. It's more about dodging moves at the right time and casting your spells and kind of planning your traps accordingly. Alright, so again, it's more about the moment-to-moment combating, which is kind of interesting. And that's one of the reasons why I don't really think this game is like Skyrim, though it's compared to Skyrim quite often. Probably because it's a fantasy-based RPG in the first-person perspective. I can understand why people will compare it to Skyrim. But when you actually get into the mechanics of it, when you get into the combat especially, you'll quickly discover that it's not really like Skyrim. I mean, Skyrim limits you through numbers and bars, and you have to wait for cooldowns and all that stuff. This game doesn't have any of that. Again, it's more about the moment to moment, so if you kind of miss a dodge, because there is a brief second where you have to wait before you can dodge again, you will pay. Alright, you will pay. You'll get hit by an arrow or some kind of fireball or some other kind of nasty attack. And if you don't plan your your AoE properly, you won't hit the mobs as, they're rushing towards you and such. Now, you do charge your attack a bit longer. You can cause status effects such as freezing if you're using ice. If you're using fire, you'll cause burning, of course. Just like that. And you can charge both your missiles as well as your AoE. Okay, now when you charge your attacks, it doesn't necessarily mean they'll do more damage. However, you'll have a much higher chance of causing a status effect if you do charge it. So that's really the benefit of charging it or not. You can actually spam your attacks, kind of just like that. And you can shoot off a bunch of different missiles at once if you like. However, they'll have a pretty low chance or maybe even no chance of causing a status effect, so do keep that in mind. So that further illustrates how this is more about the moment to moments rather than number crunching, where you know, you have to kind of decide whether you're going to charge, if the status effect is really worth it. If you're, you know, using ice, obviously it might be worth it, as it does offer a little bit of crowd control. Alright, some mobs will have shields, which you have to bypass before you can actually damage them in any significant way. So do keep that in mind. Now, the combat is actually pretty visceral. It feels pretty damn good, and is quite exciting, especially some encounters where it gets a little bit more hectic and a little bit more challenging. Alright, so if you're more of an action player, this is definitely going to be a right fit for you, I think. Now, the homing missiles or the magic missiles, they actually don't really require reticle to target, as they'll just kind of auto-home to whoever you have closest to the center of your screen, essentially. Now, the mobs can dodge your attacks, so do keep that in mind, and they have sometimes. Alright, so you can also collect these kind of orbs, I guess. Come on, let me pick it up now. There we go. And you can also destroy these things to find more of these kind of magic orbs. Oh god, mobs. Alright, let's take care of these guys. So when you dodge, you actually kind of blast an AoE underneath your feet as well. That can potentially damage the enemies as well. And you haven't noticed already, a lot of the combat involves kiting, meaning keeping mobs away from you while you stay at a distance doing damage to them. And you'll be, you know, kind of shuffling backwards quite often. Now when you're moving backwards, you're actually moving quite slow. So you'll kind of have to either rely on your dodge back, or actually turn around and run back. That way you can pick up full speed and just kind of turn around again. So kiting is going to be a big part of the combat strategy. In the current build, there's not a whole lot of variety. It's just a lot of dodging and kiting of the mobs and such. Hopefully that will change as new versions come out. Now do keep in mind, this isn't even alpha, this is the pre-alpha. So think of it more of a tech demo, if you will. And as a tech demo, it's actually quite impressive. Like I said, the combat is quite enjoyable, though a little bit lacking in variety currently. Probably because there's only 2 real spells right now, which is obviously fire and ice currently. Hopefully they will add more variety to that list. Alright. Now the graphics are actually quite gorgeous, you haven't noticed already. Alright, just 1 second while I take a sip of water. Alright, well, as I was saying, graphics are actually quite gorgeous. This is definitely reaching that AAA quality, and considering that this is an indie game, it's actually quite impressive. I don't believe the team that's working on this game is very large, so you can tell that these guys have a lot of passion behind their work, and they've definitely set the bar quite high for themselves. The visuals quite nice, the texture quality is very high def, the modeling quality is quite good as well, and even down to the animation is actually quite nice. It's, you know, they built up pretty good atmosphere as well, with the crumbling rocks everywhere and the giant doors and such. I mean, it's pretty general RPG tropes, but very good looking general RPG tropes, so there is that. So as far as visuals go, the game is actually quite impressive. Nice, you know, nice particle effects, good lighting. You know, if most people would probably confuse this with another AAA game, to be honest. You know, some people would probably think that this is a AAA game, just judging from its visuals alone. But this is an indie game, which makes it all that much more impressive. Even if this was a AAA game, the visuals would be pretty impressive, I have to say. So they've done quite a good job of that. So there you go. You can actually kind of, you know, batter your enemies with quick firing missiles rather than charging up all your attacks, which sometimes is necessary. Later on, the combat can get a lot more hectic as the encounters get more and more challenging. Alright. Now, there's something I have to mention. the game does have some balance issues currently, mostly in its mechanics. Because there's no stamina bar, because there's no, there's no MP bar or anything like that, you can kind of spam your abilities and your magic to your heart's content. Again, I don't think that's a bad thing, because this game focuses more on the moment-to-moment action rather than number crunching. But it does come with a price, and I have kind of exploited it. Before I move on to that, I do kind of want to show off another example of this game being in early access. Alright, the NPC sprites, they have some funky geometry going on here. I think I found a bug. I'm not sure if the cloak is supposed to do what it's doing. So again, this is early access, and it's definitely going to feel like an early access at times. No dialogue yet either, although I do believe that they are going to put in voice actors with actual dialogue down the road as well. Alright, so we got, actually, you know what, before I show off what I was about to talk about, I do kind of want to show off the inventory a little bit, or how the crafting and synthesis and all that stuff works. So synthesis is where you can kind of combine different orbs that you collect into a new magic orb, and you can kind of choose from one of these two random kind of stats. Alright, so you just choose one, and then you can go into crafting, and let's say I want to craft something for my ice. Alright, so I'll drag the ice over here. Then I'll take one of these kind of abilities here, like this one gives me plus 12% casting speed, which is quite nice. Now, this being an early access game and being really new, as of this recording, there's only been a day old, I believe. I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do with the second ring here. Like, if I throw this in here, I can clearly see stat changes. Alright, I get faster casting speed. Cool. I throw something in here, I don't know what it's doing. It's not really changing anything that I can perceive. Oh wait, actually maybe it just did? No, it didn't. It's just my imagination. So I'm a little confused. Oh, okay, I see now. There's some numbers that comes up on the left side on the right bar. So that's what it does. Okay. So there we go. You can throw in an orb over here and it'll give you some more passive abilities. You hit craft, and then you go to your equipped. You go to your spells, and there it is. You just kind of replace it in the appropriate slot. So that's generally how you kind of modify and upgrade your magic. Pretty simple in this current build anyways. And right now, there's only two elements. Hopefully down the road it will get a little bit more complicated. However, if they keep it simple, I can kind of understand. Again, this is more about the moment-to-moment combat. It's more about your reactionary time rather than number crunching, which is, I actually don't mind. Alright, so I want to show off something that is a little bit game breaking, that could potentially be, a mechanical oversight. So see these guys? I'm not even going to fight them. Because I have unlimited run, and because I can do my kind of like a time freeze dodge ability over and over again, as long as I do in the right timing, I can kind of just run past most, if not all, encounters. So I'm not sure if that's what the developers are aiming for, but if it's not, then I definitely found a mechanically exploitable, exploit, essentially. So we are kind of in the middle of a story segment here, so I guess I'll show that off a little bit down the road. And excuse the hawk that's floating on the funny looking woman's arm. Early access, remember. In fact, this is beyond early access. This is pre-alpha, so not even alpha. So a lot can be forgiven. I would kind of consider this more of a tech demo, and as a tech demo, it's actually quite impressive. Again, just from the visuals, it is a stable game. Long load time initially, but once you actually jump into it, I've never had any freezing or crashing or frame drops or anything like that, so that is good. So I'm going to run away from all these mobs because I can, and kind of show off what I was talking about. So I'm going to skip all these encounters. Oh, I just kind of got hit. That's only because I didn't dodge in the right timing, okay? And if I do, I can avoid most, if not all, encounters, just like this. Now, worse off is once you run far enough away from the mobs, they'll actually return to their starting points, making it even more viable to run away from encounters. So again, I'm not sure if the developers meant for this to happen, but I found that you can, and is quite exploitable. This might be because this is early access. All the game balances isn't quite there yet, isn't quite, you know, tweaked and perfected. And if that is the case, then if the developers are watching, I have found a mechanic that is exploitable. Again, because of the unlimited run and unlimited dodge ability, I can avoid most, if not all, the encounters. Alright. Now, because you don't actually collect XP in this game, like, okay, let's take Dark Souls, for example. You can actually run away from all, if not, you can run away from a lot of the encounters in Dark Souls as well. However, because you gain XP and items and stuff like that, there's incentive for you to not to do that, alright? Especially when you're farming. But because this game doesn't have that, there's not really a whole lot of incentive to not run away from your encounters, as you can progress through the game faster that way. So again, I think I just kind of found an imbalance in the game's mechanics, to something that's exploitable. I did just die, but, you know, that's just me being a noob. It's not, you know, I'm not wrong, okay? Well, if you're good enough, you can definitely exploit this. You can definitely just kind of run away from all the encounters. So, you know, if this game is meant to be played like this, if you are, you know, able to run away from all the encounters, and that is something kind of factored into the game's mechanics, then I think there should be some incentive to combat the mobs every now and then. And if it's not the case, then I think it should definitely be fixed somehow or another. I'm not a game developer, so I'm not really sure how you would do that. Maybe block off the player from progressing any further until they kill so many mobs. I'm not sure you want to do that. I'm not saying that's necessarily the most optimal fix, but that's just an example of a potential fix anyways. Alright, so there is that. Again, this is early access, so there will be some rough edges to be trimmed down and some wrinkles to be ironed out, okay? Whether it be some geometry bugs or mechanical balances and such. Alright. So there you go, guys. This is Battlemage. Or not Battlemage, Lichdom Battlemage. It's actually a pretty fun game, I have to say. The combat feels very, very fun, I have to say. Like, when I'm not running away from the encounters, when I'm actually fighting them, it's actually very, very satisfying in combat. It feels great. I love the feeling of dodging out of an attack, just, you know, out of the nick of time, and being able to kind of time my charge attacks to kind of crowd control a little bit better, just in the right timing. Like, that's a lot of fun. The game, like, feels so great. It really, really does. It's a lot of fun to combat. It doesn't, again, I don't think it feels like Skyrim, mainly because it's more action-based than number crunching. And not to mention, so far from this current build, it's not as open as, say, Skyrim, alright? So it's more about segment to segment, going down a corridor, coming up across a bunch of encounters. It's more about that kind of gameplay rather than an open world, you know, free roam. At least in this current build. That could very much change, or perhaps I haven't reached that part yet. I don't know. I'm about 2 hours in. I finished the first boss. I'm at a snowy level now. I'm kind of progressing through that area. I didn't want to start that game because I didn't want to ruin it for you guys. So these guys are taking forever to kill. I'm going to just run away. I'm going to cheese it out because I can. Alright. Something else too. While I was fighting the first boss, I do have to mention, he's a bit bullet spongy, the first boss. I'm not sure if I'll get to him by the end of this video, because I don't want to extend this video overly long. But he is a little bit bullet spongy. I don't feel like he needs to take as much hits as he does now. I mean, he's not overly difficult, and just because he takes more hits to kill doesn't make him difficult either. He only has like 3 phases, I believe, and you know, they weren't overly challenging. I killed him in my first try. It just took a long ass time. It just took a lot of dodging, doing kind of the same thing over and over again, etc, etc. So there is that, so maybe the boss could use a little bit of rebalancing as well. Again, this is early access, but from what I've played, and if you do kind of more consider this as a tech demo than an actual version, then I'm quite impressed, I have to say. Again, the combat feels nice, graphically it's gorgeous, got some nice music as well, got some nice sound assets, the spells sound good, they look good, great particle effects, and it feels stable. And it does feel like a game, which is nice to see. You know, obviously a game with some issues and some balance issues and a couple of graphical bugs, namely in the NPC's cloak and his geometry. And, you know, the game does feel a little bit limiting currently, as there's no opening cinematic, there's no voice acting yet, it's all text currently. But, you know, being in early access, you know, these things can be forgiven and overlooked. As we are more judging the combat mechanics, as that's what this version currently mostly features. There's not going to be much else to do in this game right now other than combat, so do keep that in mind. So there you go, guys, that's Lichdom Battlemage. I think you guys get it. Pretty fun game, I have to say. I'm very, very much enjoying it. I really can't wait to see what later versions come out of it, you know. Hopefully we'll see more spell variety. Hopefully we can deal with this potential mechanical breaking exploit where I can just run away from the encounters. So there you go, guys, Lichdom Battlemage. Check it out now. If you guys like what you see, definitely pick it up for 20 bucks right now. Otherwise you'll have to get it when it's more expensive. So there you go. If you guys enjoyed what you saw, if you guys found this helpful in any way, please send me some love, like, share, fave, and comment. But most importantly, please subscribe, help me grow, and feed me my vegetables. Thanks for watching, guys. All the shoutouts.